Good afternoon, everyone. It's 1 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started. This is Sarah Tronho from the Division of Nutrition Support, and today I will be discussing civil rights in child nutrition programs. The purpose of civil rights training is to inform, educate, and support all staff that interact with child nutrition programs. This training will cover USDA civil rights requirements, staff responsibilities, and resources and information available to assist staff in carrying out their civil rights responsibilities. So here's our outline for today. First, we will cover the requirement to collect race and ethnicity data and why that information is collected. Second, we will discuss the public notification systems. This is the process by which CNPs notify potential applicants of the availability of meals. Third, we'll discuss what a CNP should do if they receive a complaint alleging discrimination in the school nutrition programs from a student or parent. We will also discuss what a CNP should do if there are any areas of noncompliance and how to handle reporting of compliance issues. We will also briefly touch on issues of accommodating children with special dietary needs. While this is not a complete dietary needs presentation, we will cover the topic from the lens of ensuring equal access. We will also discuss language assistance requirements. And finally, we will discuss conflict resolution and civil rights issues related to customer service practice. This could occur anywhere in the continuum of participation, from applicants turning in a free and reduced price application to overt identification of meal status in the lunch line. There are a number of civil rights laws pertinent to child nutrition programs. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 prohibits discrimination based on race, color, and national origin. Title IX of the Education Amendments of 1972 prohibits discrimination based on sex under any education program or activity that is receiving federal financial assistance. Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 prohibits discrimination based on disability. Additional civil rights laws include the American Disabilities Act of 1990, which prohibits discrimination based on disability in all services, programs, and activities provided to the public by state and local governments, except public transportation services. The Age Discrimination Act of 1975 prohibits discrimination based on age in programs or activities receiving federal financial assistance. And the Civil Rights Restoration Act of 1987 prohibits discrimination based on race, color, and national origin. Here are other resources and authorities on civil rights and child nutrition programs. I will draw your attention to FNS Instruction 113-1, which is entitled Civil Rights Compliance and Enforcement, Nutrition Programs and Activities. This guidance covers the scope of civil rights laws and child nutrition programs. On January 20th, 2021, President Biden issued the latest executive order 13988, which states that all persons are entitled to dignity, respect, and equal treatment under the law, no matter their gender, identity, or sexual orientation. What is discrimination? Discrimination is defined as different treatment, which makes a distinction of one person or group, either intentionally, by neglect, or by actions or lack of actions based on the protected classes. Examples of discrimination may include giving one group or type of participants larger or extra helpings of food, separating genders at mealtime, failing to provide children with a dietary disability accommodating meals, or failing to provide program information to all potential program applicants. Protected classes in child nutrition programs are race, age, color, sex, including gender identity and sexual orientation, national origin, and disability. This means that an alleged discrimination complaint will pertain to one of these areas. Civil rights training is required annually for all staff. This includes full-time staff, part-time staff, temporary staff, central office and site staff, and volunteers. Documentation for civil rights training must be maintained for 3 years plus the current year. Documentation must also include sign-in sheets, agendas, and dates and times of trainings. All civil rights trainings should be tracked on the training tracking tool. Civil rights subject matter must include the following: collection and use of data, effective public notification systems, complaint procedures, compliance review techniques, resolution of noncompliance, requirements for accommodation of persons with disabilities, requirements for language assistance, conflict resolution, and customer service. All CNPs that participate in USDA child nutrition programs must have a system to collect the racial and ethnic data of program participants in accordance with FNS Instruction 113-1. This data is used to determine the state's compliance with federal civil rights laws. FNS Instruction 113-1, Appendix B, Section F, titled Data Collection 2B and 3B, also states, in reference to CACFP and SFSP respectively, visual identification may be used by institutions or sponsors to determine a beneficiary's racial or ethnic category. Upon further review, USDA determined that the only program with a regulatory requirement to collect race and ethnicity data via visual observation and identification is the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. USDA has reviewed this policy and concluded that the use of visual observation and identification by CACFP institutions and facilities and SFSP sponsors is not an appropriate method for collecting race or ethnicity data in CACFP and SFSP programs. CACFP and SFSP sponsors should continue explaining the importance of this data to participants as they encourage them to self-identify and self-report. However, there are all alternative means by which CACFP institutions and facilities and SFSP sponsors can obtain race or ethnicity data in the CACFP and SFSP programs, such as utilizing data from other sources in which the respondent has self-identified race or ethnicity, such as school databases. The collection of this information is strictly for statistical reporting requirements and has no effect on the determination of their eligibility to receive program benefits. This data must be collected annually. This data must also be maintained in a confidential file for 3 years plus the current year, and this information should be restricted to authorized personnel and other authorized state and federal personnel when requested. Ethnicity is broken down into 2 categories: Hispanic or Latino and non-Hispanic or Latino. The racial categories include American Indian or Alaskan Native, Asian, Black or African American, Native Hawaiian or Pacific Islander, and white. A person may identify as belonging to multiple racial categories. All FNS assistance programs must include a public notification system. The purpose of a public notification is to inform applicants, participants, and potential eligible persons of the program availability, program rights and responsibilities, the policy of non-discrimination, and the procedure for filing a complaint. Through public outreach, CNPs are trying to ensure program access to as many potential participants as possible. Public notification must include information regarding eligibility, benefits, and services, program availability, including hours and locations, applicant rights and responsibilities, procedures for filing a complaint, non-discrimination policies, and any program changes. CNPs must notify the public annually of their participation in the program. Notification to applicants and participants must include information regarding program availability, program rights and responsibilities, the procedure for filing a complaint, and the policy of non-discrimination. The public notification system must include the following elements: public release. CNPs must take specific actions to inform the public of their program rights and responsibilities and the steps necessary for participation in the program. You must also display the And Justice for All poster. CNPs must display And Justice for All poster in the correct size in a prominent location where it is visible to all participants in the program. The poster provides the USDA address and phone numbers that the public can use to file a complaint if they think their civil rights have been violated. Applicants and participants must be advised of their right to file a discrimination complaint, how to file a complaint, and the complaint procedures. Non-discrimination statement: all informational materials, including websites used by CNPs to inform the public about FNS programs, must contain the non-discrimination statement. Public notification can include methods such as internet and computer-based applications, newspapers, radio or television, letters, leaflets, and brochures, and bulletins. Be sure to convey the message of equal opportunity in photos and other graphics that are used to promote program information to applicants or participants. The media release must be provided at or near the beginning of the school year to local news media, the unemployment office, and to any major employers contemplating layoffs in the area. The media release must include the eligibility criteria for free and reduced meal prices. For CEP schools, the media release should inform the public that school meals will be free to all enrolled students. It is at the discretion of the media if they decide to publish the media release. Another method of public notification is informational letters that inform households of program availability. Informational letters must be distributed by schools at the beginning of the school year by mail, email, or in person. Letters cannot be sent at the end of the school year for the upcoming school year. All CNPs must prominently display the USDA non-discrimination poster and Justice for All. The poster must be 11 by 17 in size and should be displayed in each CNP and in a location that is easily visible to the students and the public in the school food service area. The USDA non-discrimination statement must be included on all forms of communication and program materials. Program materials include all public information and education. The long version of the non-discrimination statement is required on all documents pertaining to student eligibility, such as prototypes of letters to the household, verification, and direct certification. The long version of the non-discrimination statement should also be used whenever possible or where space permits. The short version of the non-discrimination statement can be used if the document is too small and there is limited space, such as on menus or nutrition flyers. If using the short version of the non-discrimination statement, a 9-point font is required. This is the long version of the non-discrimination statement. Please note that the non-discrimination statement was changed in May of 2022 to reflect the addition of gender identity and sexual orientation. This is the long version of the non-discrimination statement in Spanish. Additional languages are available on the USDA website. At this time, translations of the most updated non-discrimination statement are currently being updated. As soon as these are available, the state agency will release them. There are a couple of requirements when printing the non-discrimination statement. The first printing requirement is that the wording for either statement cannot be changed. The second printing requirement is that the print size cannot be smaller than the text of the material. Also note that in auditory presentations, such as public service announcements, the shortened version may also be used, but the long version is required on any vital documents, even if it is only 1 page long. The non-discrimination statement is required on any materials that mention the programs to the public. These materials may include advertisements, publications, letters, enrollment forms, broadcasts, CNP websites, etc. Items that do not require the non-discrimination statement to be printed are incentive items such as cups, buttons, magnets, pins, due to the impractical size. With the change in language of the non-discrimination statement and Justice for All poster, USDA has provided a timeline that we all must follow in updating websites, printed materials, and display of the poster. Materials with the non-discrimination statement that should be updated, and the timeline is that all documents, pamphlets, and websites should be updated with the 2022 NDS as follows. Websites should have been updated within 90 days of the memo that was dated May of 2022. And documents, pamphlets, and brochures using the 2015 NDS language must be updated when the current supply on hand is exhausted or by September 20th, 2023. All new printing material must include the new versions. Updated and Justice for All posters will be provided as soon as they are received by state agency. Until that time, the old poster must remain on display in all facilities providing services. Applicants and participants must be advised of their right to file a complaint, how to file a complaint, and complaint procedures. Any person who believes they have been discriminated against based on one of the protected classes has a right to file a complaint within 180 days of the alleged discriminatory action. Complaints may be written, verbal, or observed. A complaint may also be anonymous. Anonymous complaints should be handled the same as any other complaint. If the complaint is verbal and the person alleging discrimination is not inclined to put the allegation in writing, the person to whom the complaint was made must write up the complaint on behalf of the complainant. The first step is to document the complaint and make an effort to obtain the information. Information that is needed are the name, address, and phone number of the complainant, specific name and location of the entity delivering the benefit or the service, the nature of the incident, action, or method of administration that led the complainant to feel discriminated against, the basis on which the complainant feels discrimination exists in one of the protected classes, and the names, titles, business address, and phone numbers of any persons who may have knowledge of the discriminatory action. The date during which the alleged discriminatory actions occurred, or if continuing the duration of such actions. All complaints should then be forwarded directly to USDA. The second step for a civil rights complaint is to contact USDA. All verbal or written complaints must be forwarded to the Civil Rights Division of USDA Food and Nutrition Services within 3 days of receiving a complaint. The third step in civil rights complaints is to maintain documentation. All civil rights documentation should be kept at a central location and should be maintained for 3 years plus the current year. Here is an example of the discrimination complaint form. It can be located at the web address listed. The complaint form must be available at all sites participating in the child nutrition programs. When an individual wants to report a discrimination complaint, child nutrition staff should have as little involvement as possible with the complaint process. All staff must be trained on civil rights and this civil rights complaint form. The form must be available at all sites, and staff should allow individuals to file their own complaint with as little involvement as possible. A few civil rights reminders include the USDA regional office is responsible for the review of the state agencies. The state agencies are responsible for the review of the child nutrition program. State agencies must report any significant findings to USDA. CNPs must receive a pre-approval visit to ensure compliance with civil rights before receiving federal funds. And compliance is assessed through the administrative review process. If non-compliance is indicated, a corrective action plan must be implemented to achieve voluntary compliance within 60 days. The corrective action plan should describe the agency's actions to be taken to resolve the non-compliance determined. If the corrective action is not achieved within 60 days, suspension of assistance or termination may result. So here is your checklist for civil rights compliance. Number 1, make sure that the civil rights written policy and complaint log is kept. Train all staff and volunteers annually. All staff should know CNP civil rights policy. prominently display the "And Justice for All" poster, collect and record racial and ethnic data, keep all records for 3 years plus the current year. Also make sure to maintain civil rights complaint procedures and forms, and place the non-discrimination statement on all printed materials mentioning child nutrition programs. As a reminder, district policies regarding civil rights complaints should specify how civil rights compliance is handled for CNP, separate from other programs. Now we'll move on to accommodating persons with disabilities. Reasonable accommodations refer to ensuring that participants with a disability have physical access to programs and services, such as easily accessible entrances, restrooms, etc. A CNP is required to provide food substitutions or modifications for a student with a dietary disability. A written medical statement completed and signed by a licensed physician, advanced practice nurse with prescriptive authority, or a physician assistant is required to be on file when the request falls outside of the meal pattern. Meal pattern modifications within meal pattern do not require a medical statement. Meal pattern modification outside of the meal patterns do require a medical statement provided by a licensed medical provider. A licensed medical provider includes a medical doctor, physician assistant, or a nurse practitioner. The medical statement must include information about the child's impairment and how it restricts the diet, an explanation of what must be done to accommodate the disability, and the foods to be omitted and the recommended alternatives. If the medical statement does not fully explain the modification needed, the school food service should contact the guardian for additional information. As a reminder, receipt of clarification should not delay the modified diet. Limited English proficiency, referred to as LEP, are those individuals who do not speak English as their primary language and who have a limited ability to read, speak, write, or understand English. CNPs must take reasonable steps to assure meaningful access to information and services they provide to individuals with LEP. Reasonable steps would include an evaluation of the following factors. Number one, the number or proportion of LEP persons eligible to be served or likely to be encountered by the program. The frequency with which LEP individuals come in contact with the program. The nature and importance of the program, activity, or service provided by the program to people's lives, and the resources that are available and the costs to provide these resources. A shortage of resource or anticipated costs to provide these services to individuals with LEP does not eliminate the requirement to do so. CNPs must explore the most cost-effective means of delivering services and information to people with LEP. All child nutrition program information should be provided in the necessary language for all participants and their families. For example, enrollment forms, menus, brochures, and letters should be provided in the necessary language for all participants and their families. Language interpreters can be helpful when dealing with someone with limited English proficiency. Volunteers may be used, but they should understand the ethics required when using an interpreter. For example, a Spanish teacher could assist a household in completing a meal application, but would need to be trained on the importance of keeping all information confidential. Also, children should not be used as interpreters. In no way is a CNP to impede with a customer's right to file a civil rights complaint. However, most conflicts are easily resolved by using appropriate tools. Conflict resolution consists of useful skills to assist with the solutions of complaints. These skills include using a win-win approach, change the conflict from an attack and defense to cooperation and avoid the desire to blame. Number two, use a creative response, turn problems into possibilities to improve the situation. Number three, demonstrate empathy. Help others feel that they are understood by being an active listener. Number four, appropriate assertiveness. State your case without arousing the defenses of another person. Remember to use I statements to communicate your feelings directly. Manage emotions. Stick strictly to the facts of the complaint and communicate your feelings directly, and have a willingness to resolve. Identify barriers to a resolution and overcome those barriers. Avoid repeating the situation. If the complainant persists with their complaint, direct them to file their complaint with the USDA's Office of Civil Rights. Customer service is defined as effectively communicating with customers, responding to the customer's needs, valuing the customer's worth, and instilling excellence through courtesy, confidence, and enthusiasm. Treating customers with respect and dignity through excellent customer service saves you time and minimizes opportunities for complaints and angry customers. All students must be allowed equal opportunities to participate in the child nutrition programs, regardless of race, color, national origin, sex, age, or disability. All participants of the child nutrition program must be treated equitably. In order to reduce the risk of a civil rights discrimination complaint, ask yourself the following questions each time a participant comes to your program for services. First, am I treating this person in the same manner I treat others? Second, have I given this person the opportunity to ask for questions? And number 3, have I provided the person with information he or she needs to make the necessary decisions? During meal service, all students with the same grade grouping must be offered the same menu selection, regardless of their eligibility, sex, national origin, race, color, age, or disability. All varieties and selections must be made available to all students within the same grade grouping. In the examples provided, it would be discrimination to provide high school football players with bigger scoops of food or save certain food items for a specific group. USDA policy prohibits the denial of meals as a disciplinary action against any student who is enrolled in a school that participates in the child nutrition program. It also prohibits requiring a child to work for or earn their meal. Identifying information must not be used for any purpose other than determining and verifying eligibility for free or reduced meals. Overt identification should be considered in different situations beyond the application process. This includes at the point of service where other students may see eligibility statuses on the cashier's computer screen. Or, for example, when special functions take place that require alternate meal service types, such as field trips and class parties. In these instances, no overt identification of meal status should occur. This is another list of some other resources that focus on customer service and other civil rights information. And that is everything we have today. Are there any questions? If you do have a question, you can put it in the chat box and we will answer them. All right, well, it doesn't appear that there are any questions today, but if you do have some, please do not hesitate to contact us at the phone number here, 225-342-9661, or email us at childnutritionprograms@la.gov. I hope you all have a great day.